are the youth. Some of us have dealt with the youth, and we will all notice one thing when we are dealing with the youth, that very often they will disappoint our expectations, isn't it? Very often when we expect them to behave a certain way, they just won't behave that way. So in fact, 10 days ago when I was with my 10th standard class, I was telling them that I've stopped expecting anything from you, and I didn't mean it negatively. So they said, what, you don't expect anything from us? So I said, because when I expect you to do something, you'll never do it. But when I least expect it, you'll surprise me in a way that I feel, wow. So that's how this generation is. They don't fulfill our expectations the way we want them to, but they'll connect in their own way. In our time, if we did something because we were told, you do it because your mother tells you, we do it. This generation will not do anything until and unless it makes sense to them. So they will not follow our patterns, and there's a reason for it. In fact, I'm reading out mother's words. Mother's, in 1969, the mother announced that a new consciousness had manifested on earth, what she called the supramental consciousness, or the new consciousness, consciousness of the new world. She said that from 1st January 1969, a new vibration entered the Earth's atmosphere. This would influence future generations. According to her, children born after 1969 would, 1, be more open to the new consciousness, more receptive to the supramental force, she said these children would have a more intuitive intelligence. So they won't function so much from logic, but from an inner feel of things. And that may sometimes startle us, because we expect them to do things as logic demands. But they don't go by logic, they go by an inner intuitive feel. A natural inner freedom, a natural truth sense, and less attachment to old structures, habits and traditions. 2, they will be more plastic and receptive and mentally agile. So they will be more prone to breaking standard ways of behaving, accepted traditions. Traditions won't make too much sense to them because they don't conform to that. In fact, when I take children to Pondicherry, many of them tell me that we were on the verge of being atheists, because the religions, the typical religions which our parents force us to follow, they don't make any sense to us. It doesn't make sense to me to fast like that, or do this or do that. So because it's not making sense to me, I don't want to believe in it. I was on the verge of becoming an atheist, and then 2 days into the Pondi atmosphere and being with mother, they'll say that after experiencing mother, it doesn't make sense to be an atheist. But if they are forced to follow that old religious way of being, and they are in very good company, that's how mother was when she was young, and she was exposed to that very orthodox Christian church. She said, I decided at that age I didn't want to believe in such a God who was a tyrant, who kept an account of my good deeds and bad deeds. I didn't want anything to do with a God like that. So these children are following her footprints. They don't want to believe just because you're telling them to believe. They believe if the experience tells them to believe. So they are more plastic, receptive and mentally agile. The mother described them as less tied to rigid mental patterns, capable of quick adaptation, more sensitive and inwardly awake. Because they are more sensitive, it's a double-edged sword. They get hurt also more quickly because they are more sensitive to energies. You may say something, pick that up, but if the energy behind is aggressive, these children are sensitive to that vibration. They pick up the energy behind your words more than your words. They carry within them the possibility of a new human type. Mother often said, the new children are already among us. She repeatedly said, children born after 1969 will be very different. They will find old systems impossible. They will be more conscious, more transparent. So that's what we find in this generation typically. They are very blunt. They don't pretend. For example, I've been teaching yoga to children for almost 30 years. Earlier when I started, if the children liked you, they were very eager to please you. They'd give you answers which they know would make you happy. Of late, the children will say things even if they know it will displease you, because for them it's important to be true to themselves. So I'm actually seeing that these children are very transparent. They don't hide, they don't pretend, which is why very often people of the older generation find them disrespectful, but they are not meaning to be disrespectful. They are meaning to just state what they feel, and it may not conform with our idea of what it is. So they will be more conscious, more transparent. They cannot tolerate falsehood. So they will be very quick to tell even their elders that you're talking nonsense. If they feel you're talking nonsense, they are not being disrespectful. But mother says that these children, they cannot tolerate falsehood. They won't just tolerate it because you're elder, and they won't give you respect because of your age. You have to earn that respect. They won't just see white hair and say, yeah, I love you, I respect you. You have to earn their respect because they are very much in touch with the truth of their being. A new world is trying to take birth through them, the mother said. She also said that many will struggle if they are forced into traditional frameworks because their consciousness vibrates differently. If you force them to conform to religious traditions or force them to follow the typical way of engineering or being a doctor, which they are not adapted to, they will suffer immensely because they cannot conform the way older generation could. So there was a student of mine, Sanaya Patel. When she was 19, she wrote this about her experience of the world and yoga. So she said, we were born in a world of conditioning, and she's speaking for the children of tomorrow. I feel her words are very resonant with that. We were born in a world of conditioning, a world of boxes, of stereotypes, judgment, hierarchy, games, expectations and labels. That's the environment they are born into, a world of boxes. And all the time we want to fix people into boxes. Be this way. Tradition says you should be married by the time you're 25, so much pressure to get married. Tradition say you should wear this, so you must wear this. These boxes make us see skin as soul. So because we are forced to fit into boxes, we are forced to pay so much attention to appearance. We are forced to see skin as soul. These boxes try to push something very powerful into a very weak mold. So that very powerful is our soul, and the boxes are trying to fit that something very powerful into a very weak mold of social conventions. These boxes take us far away from ourselves, and yoga takes me home. Yoga is my anchor, my reminder that life is easier when I simplify, Mother used to keep saying, no, that be simple, mental simplicity. That's about not overthinking, not making so many convoluted judgments and narratives about something, which the media is so expert at. No, the more we scroll, the more agitated we get. In fact, many times I've seen there's a direct proportion between a mental dysfunction and how much time we are spending scrolling the media. Because the media does something very wacko to our mind. It sort of projects an image we all have to live up to, and nobody can live up to that image because everyone's posting really fake things. Because I'm a yoga teacher, people confide in me, and very often I know about terrible fights husband and wife are having, and then on Facebook I'll see, you are the love of my life, the father of my children, you are this, you are that, and I'm wondering what's happening. Now I know, but people who don't know will say, what a beautiful marriage, I don't have that, and they start feeling small about it. So everything on the media, most things on it is fake, and that's the box we are forced to fit into. So I'm not defined by the standards set by society. I'm not the poison my mind tries to feed me. So beautifully she's saying, I'm not defined by the standards set by society. I'm not the poison my mind tries to feed me. I hold sunshine inside me. So beautiful. These children are born with a truth consciousness. They know they hold sunshine inside them, untouched by the outside, untouched by labels, stereotypes and definitions. I am without the noise of the world. I am without my own thoughts. I am in silence. I am. So I am is the awareness space, the God consciousness in us before we say I am Isha or I am Anahita. So I am is the footprint of God inside us. I am.
This has been written by a girl aged
19. Now she's older, but at 19 in the 10th standard she wrote this.
And how far back? How many years back?
Now how old are? How much? 10 years ago.
10 years back.
Yeah. So I'm reading her poem again. It's gorgeous. We were born in a world of conditioning, a world of boxes, of stereotypes, judgment, hierarchy, games, expectations and labels. These boxes make us see skin as soul. These boxes try to push something very powerful into a very weak mold. These boxes take us far away from ourselves, and yoga takes me home. Yoga is my anchor, my reminder that life is easier when I simplify. I am not defined by the standards set by society. I am not the poison my mind tries to feed me. I hold sunshine inside me, untouched by the outside, untouched by labels, stereotypes and definitions. I am without the noise of the world. I am without my own thoughts. I am in silence. I am. So just to give you another example of a child. Okay, so I have penned in an article my reflections with children I've worked with. This is from that article. So I'm reading it out. This is a true story. It actually happened. It is a sultry summer afternoon as I sit with a small group of teenagers exploring concepts in a yoga theory class in a school in South Mumbai. One young adolescent, I've changed names for the privacy of the children. One young adolescent, Simona, is clearly distracted. She raises her hand and pouts, Miss, I was in a very good mood in the morning. Then I thought of the yoga class a couple of hours away and my whole mood dipped. Okay, I say, and continue the class, trying to conceal my bruised ego. After class, I asked Simona what was really bothering her. Miss, before I started attending yoga classes, I had become comfortable with my sadness. So to give you a background, Simona came from a very, very dysfunctional family. Her father was an alcoholic, her mother was into drugs, so very shaky childhood. So she said, before I started attending yoga classes, I had become comfortable with my sadness. Yoga threatens me with the possibility of change. It tells me that I can be comfortable being happy. This agitates me, so I get restless during yoga classes. In course of time, we study Rishi Patanjali's Yoga Sutra 1.2, which states that when thoughts cease, we naturally fall into union or yoga with an inner reality which exists beyond the mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Basically, Rishi Patanjali defines yoga as the union of the outer being with the inner being when our thoughts stop. Simona conceptualizes this inner reality as Madonna Simona. So her inner being, she was a very conventionally wild child, into parties and boys and everything, and one wouldn't think that the concept of Madonna would appeal to her, but it did. We are such a contradiction. So Madonna conceptualizes this inner reality as Madonna Simona. She addresses a letter to Madonna whenever she is upset in her diary. Every time she does so, she receives perspectives on situations that alleviate her misery. See, we write letters to the mother, but she did it in her own way. Her inner being she conceptualized as Madonna Simona and started writing letters to her. Over a period of time, she comes to accept that it is fine for her to be happy. Whereas earlier she used to hurl herself into wild parties with a vengeance to escape her misery, now she prefers to spend time with herself, exploring this being she has coined as Madonna Simona. In her own words, earlier I enjoyed being called wild. Now I understand that being wild is not about leading an undisciplined life. It is about living with abandon. So beautiful, no? All children love this concept of being cool and wild, but without anyone having to tell her, she realized that being wild is not about leading an undisciplined life. It's about living with abandon. So, okay, to talk about another student I worked with, I'm just giving you examples to tell you that at first meeting, we feel these are the Sunite children Sri Aurobindo is talking about, he's mistaken. But it's not so. If you see later into their lives, you see that he's absolutely bang on right. So we've been having these sessions. Years ago they were called Savitri classes, now they are called Swadhyay classes every Saturday. And I had one student, an ex-student, who had a boyfriend who was heavily into drugs. And she wanted to bring him here, but he would not come to a spiritual thing because his mind was elsewhere. So she told him, it's a literature reading class, please come. So he came and he attended one class, and somehow something reached him of Sri Aurobindo's words in Savitri, and he started working a lot on himself, became a regular here, and he decided he wanted to quit drugs. But as we know, lots of these young children fund their drug activities by becoming drug dealers, because otherwise they don't have money to buy drugs. So he had also become a drug dealer, and once you're part of that cartel, it's very difficult to pull out. So he stopped his drugs and he stopped communicating with the drug dealers. But one day a drug dealer met him and was very abusive with him, and there was a physical fight and there was bloodshed. And after that, whenever he thought of this drug dealer, he would feel wild with fury, and nothing we did would help. He would just feel a rage which he recognized was toxic. So then we went for our yoga camp. Once a year we go, this group. So he came along, and the first night we went to the samadhi, he was just, I tell children, they don't know mother yet. So I tell them, you just talk to the air. Just make an experiment that the air at the samadhi has ears and is listening, and you talk to the air. So he sat at the samadhi and he was talking to the air, and he addressed mother as the air and said, look, I don't know whether you exist or not, but if you're here, as people say, and you're listening to me, help me. I feel this crazy rage whenever I think of that person, and it makes me dysfunctional. Help me out. And he finished saying this, and he felt something fall on his shoulder. He looked around, there was nothing, but maybe something from the service tree had fallen. And then he opened his eyes and he said, after that moment, the thought of that drug dealer has never ever bothered him. And then, of course, he fell hook, line and sinker in love with the mother. And to this day, wherever he is, whichever part of India, he will find a Sri Aurobindo center, go there and spend 2 hours once a week. And not only did he give up drugs eventually, but he didn't even touch alcohol for a long time. Even if his girlfriend had alcohol, he would have green tea. Then when he was in the process of quitting drugs, I give children this little book, Seeds of Light, and I tell them that whenever you have a question, ask the question, open to any page and read it. So one day when he was thinking, should I take that talk or not of drugs, he said, Chal, let me ask mother. So he held the Seeds of Light in his hand and he opened it. And what did he read? Ever, ever higher. Do not stop till you're content. So mother was joking with him. So he laughed so much that he didn't end up having that drug anyway. So yeah, if you just met this boy the first time he came, you would not ever dream that he was capable of this kind of depth of man. Then later on, when he started meditating on the mother, he says that I don't need drugs. When I'm meditating on her, I anyway get a high, which is real, which is from inside me. Why should I turn to chemically induced highs? So yeah, these children are very special, but we have to go through to that point where we reach that specialness inside them. So, now I'm reading from the PDF. Sri Aurobindo says that after 1969, very special beings have come down to earth to take evolution forward. On the net, tons of information is available on these kids who are styled as indigo children, crystal children or rainbow children. Many of the children who have learning disabilities are actually born with exceptional spiritual equipment. We come across a lot of children with ADHD and other things, but they are very often these very, very special children. So I'm reading out an example. An example of a boy I taught comes to mind. This boy was severely dyslexic, and during my first few days of yoga classes, he would come to the yoga space dribbling a ball, and despite being cajoled or reprimanded, would insist on dribbling it while I was teaching yoga. So I'm teaching asanas and he's continuing to play with the ball, and while deeper layers of his consciousness would perhaps thirstily engage in what we were exploring, his superficial personality forced him to be distracted and disturbing. So we have to understand this. something in them is hungry for the truth, but their environment and outer sort of personality doesn't allow them to. I remember another boy, very distracted, very agitated, but really wanted to hear what I was saying. So he told me that, Miss, if I sit still, I'll create chaos. So let me jog around the room. I'm promising I'll listen to you. So I said, okay, you can run around, but if I ask you a question and you can't answer it, you have to sit. So throughout my class, he was running around, and I'd stop and ask him, now what is this? And he could answer. But that was his level of energy. He had too much energy and he needed to jog to dispel it in order to listen. So we have to find different ways to work with them. If on the other hand you're a tyrant and you say, stop misbehaving, how can you be so disrespectful, I'm your teacher, it won't work with this generation. They are different. We have to accept it. So anyway, this other boy would keep dribbling the ball in my class, and the only time when we are supposed to be still, Shavasana also, he would roll all over other children, all over. It was impossible. I could not teach with him in class, but I had the guts to take him to Pandi, and I was very frightened what he'd do there, because he can't sit still for a second. And we go and sit at the Samadhi for half an hour, 1 hour, and I was thinking, what is he going to do? So anyway, after months of teaching him yoga in Mumbai, which created some readiness in him, he accompanied me to a yoga camp in Pondicherry. My jaw would drop as I would see him sitting at Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's Samadhi, with his hands on his heart, because that's, we sort of touch this, eyes closed, and he would be breathing the Ujjayi breath. Some of you know what that is, and he would do it louder than it's supposed to be, because if I'm sitting next to him, I could hear him. And I thought he hadn't learnt anything, because in my class, he would never put his hand on his heart. I could never hear him doing Ujjayi, but he had internalized something. So he would sit at the Samadhi with his hand on his heart, breathing the Ujjayi breath. And I couldn't meditate because I was so shocked. It was the stillest I'd ever seen him. Over 30 minutes he would sit. I would have to gently tap him when it was time to go. And this happened every single night. He was a different person when he came back to Mumbai. He was so calm and self-contained that it was noticed starkly by his classmates and teachers. And then I would tell them to write a reflection on their Pandi trip. So in his reflection he wrote, I was a happy child till standard 3. Then I was diagnosed with dyslexia and my grades dropped tremendously. I lost my ability to be happy, to a gnawing feeling of inadequacy and fear that I'll fail, I won't do well. Pressure from parents, pressure from teachers. Then after coming back from Pondicherry, I found the happiness I had lost. I was a happy child, I lost it. In Pandi, I found it again. Now my only fear is that I must not lose it again. The boy actually had a brilliant mind. Despite his dyslexia, he had a brilliant mind, and has today successfully completed an engineering degree in a prestigious university abroad. This reminds me of another boy I taught. This boy was very sweet and connected to yoga from the beginning. As you can imagine, I am teaching groups of very, very challenging teenagers. So when others in his class would run around and not settle to do yoga, he'd go to each one and beg them, sit, no, I want to do yoga, sit, no, I want to do yoga. So he was one of those. And he also was diagnosed with very severe dyslexia. And this was a few months before his IGCSE board exam. But he also took a great shine to Sri Aurobindo and to Savitri. After a Pandi camp, he brought the Savitri home, and every night before sleeping, he would read a page of Savitri. and he would say he would understand something, he would not understand something. But sometimes he said he would just keep reading for a long time and then go to sleep. And in his IGCSE board exam, he stood 5th in his class. And he says that he feels it's the working of Savitri on his brain that created this huge leap in his marks. Then he went for a summer camp to Brown University abroad, and he carried Savitri wherever he went, and he would be reading Savitri below. He was sitting in a garden reading Savitri, and people would ask him, "What's that you're reading?" So he would say Savitri. So they got curious, and he told them about it. So they said, "We'd like to know more." So by then he was hardly 17, and a group of young people his age, he actually gave them a half-an-hour talk on Savitri and his experiences with it. Then on his door, instead of the "Do Not Disturb" sign, every day he would put up some line from Savitri or something mother had said, and people would knock on his door and ask, "What does that mean?" And he would welcome them in and start talking about it. So there are children like this in our midst, but we just have to find them and bring out, and he's doing remarkable work. This was years ago, but he's doing so much good work abroad. His ambition is to qualify himself abroad, come back to India and change the education system. I mean, at least that's what his goal was. I hope he'll do it. Okay, then this is another example of their thinking. I've changed all the names, of course. 25-year-old Ashish's statement, "I'm never going to get married," boldly challenges the conditioning that life is incomplete without marriage. That's what we believe, and that's what we keep feeding our children. But this boy was very clear, "I'm never going to get married." Ashish has experimented with everything that holds a promise of adventure. Having seen futility of his experiment with drugs, he now invests his energy in the more fulfilling experiments he's making in the field of consciousness and self-discovery. The strange byways that led Ashish to this current experiment reminds me of my little friend Nirgish's words when I expressed anxiety about the malaise of drug addiction that is claiming our youth. So, there was one particular boarding school out of Bombay, very popular a few years ago, where drug addiction was a major thing. And when one of my, like many of my ex-students would go there, and they would need to come back and have counseling because drugs would have warped their minds and all that. So there was one student of mine who was very shy, very sensitive, and she got admission to that boarding school. So I tried to discourage her, but she was clear she wanted to go there. So when I shared that with this other girl, Nirgish, she told me such a lovely thing. She said, "Chill, miss, why are you worried? If we fall, we'll bruise our knees, we'll get up, heal them and walk." So they have an innate sense of not fearing failure. We are so scared and we are so protective, but this generation is not afraid of falling. It has faith in itself to fall and get up and take on the challenges again. That's why they are more adventurous, because they are less fearful than us. They are not always thinking, "What will happen to me, what will happen to me." Did I hear echoing the vision of Sri Aurobindo simply by reading her own depths? Sri Aurobindo writes in synthesis, "If we fail in our immediate aim, it is because he has intended the failure. Often our failure or ill result is the right road to a truer issue than an immediate and complete success would have put in our reach. If we suffer, it is because something in us has to be prepared for a rarer possibility of delight. If we stumble, it is to learn in the end the secret of a more perfect walking. Sri Aurobindo writes this in Synthesis of Yoga, but I feel the youth already know this through the Veda inside them. They are saying the same thing in simpler words. Coming back to Ashish, he further expounds on his stunning statement on marriage, saying, people get married because they are told they have to. If I have never chilled with any other woman but my wife, I will tend to attribute my unhappiness and happiness to her. But if I've been with others and find these mind states recurring, no matter who the partner of the moment is, I can know from experience that my happiness quotient is a function of my being and has little to do with the girl I'm with. He's saying something so clever. If I've been only with one partner all my life and I'm unhappy, it's easy for me to say she's the cause of my unhappiness. But if I've been with several partners and I'm still unhappy, then I know that this unhappiness is coming from inside me. I can't blame the person. Again, a youth who, without having read too much of Sri Aurobindo, speaks his language. In Savitri, Sri Aurobindo writes, "Thou art thyself the author of thy pain." Now this boy is saying the same thing in different simpler words. 22-year-old Kamini pelts the edifice of conventional romantic love with her words, "I love my boyfriend Nitesh for the connect I have with him, for what he brings out in me. I have given him the freedom to experiment in physical relationships with other girls, so long as we continue to share the beautiful moments we do." This startles us, but it works for them. Right, wrong, these are subjective and at one level irrelevant terms. What stands out is the new awareness of thought process that refuses to conform to conditioned social norms. 18-year-old Vikram stumps me with his words. These days I'm talking less and listening more, because I see clearly that the impulse to talk stems from the ego and its need to propagate itself. Why give in to this need? When I talk, I tend to unconsciously exaggerate or be inaccurate to look good in people's eyes. Better to remain quiet and listen. Amazing. No, at 18 he shared this with me, that mostly our need to talk is fueled by our ego, because the ego wants to appear a certain way. Better not to fuel that need, better to be quiet and listen. I recollect Sri Aurobindo's words. This is Savitri, page 6. The embodied guest within, this is applying to Savitri, made no response. The call that wakes the leap of the human mind, its checkered eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. So, no, the embodied guest in Savitri made no response to the invitation of thought to tango with its narratives and all that. The call that wakes the leap of the human mind, its checkered eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. So thought would come, but it would be an alien note to Savitri's heart, a sweet alien note. She didn't welcome it in, she didn't tango with it. And somehow in Vikram's words, I found a similar thing, that he wasn't tangoing with his thoughts or his ego. Okay, so we continue from the PDF. There was one boy on the first day of the yoga camp in Pondicherry. Now these children are so sensitive to the atmosphere of Pondi, that we barely reached Pondi by 2:30. When I gather them for the orientation by 4, they are already feeling different. They have that kind of receptivity to the new consciousness. So this was over the orientation. We had reached Pondi at 2 o'clock, and I always start by asking them, how are y'all feeling? And this boy told me this: over here, I don't feel the need to be heard or noticed by others. That stumped me, because what is the ego? It's the need to be heard and noticed by others. And all the narratives in our mind are about, how can I be noticed more? How can I appear to be more special? Now this boy, having come to Pondi, I hadn't done anything, no sessions, nothing. The atmosphere had taught him, his ego had thinned. He didn't care so much how he appeared in people's minds. This 13-year-old had heartwarmingly expressed that in the educational atmosphere provided in Pondicherry, he did not feel the agitating and competitive push of the ego to be in the limelight all the time. He could find his peace in being rather than doing. The ego finds peace in doing. Let me do this, let me look good. But when we are in being, in the I am that Sanaya talks about, I am in silence, I am. When we are in that, we find peace in that. Modern education has its roots in the industrial age. Human beings are treated like raw materials to be beaten into shape to become parts of a social machine. There is a pre-designed concept of what a child should grow up to be, and hence the natural unfolding of the child is thwarted. So in our schools, we have a concept that what is a model child? A model child is one who gets good grades, who's good at everything, blah, blah, blah. And we send children to school as if we are putting raw material into a soap machine. We want standard soap bars which all look the same to come out. But can that happen with human raw material? It cannot. But because we are forcing children to fit preconceived molds, they are losing their originality, they are losing. See, I often hear not only children, even adults. Nowadays, nobody wears this. Everybody uses this. So what am I hearing? Everybody uses this, so I should also use this. Nowadays, nobody wears that, so I should also not wear that. But where's my originality? Why am I all the time going with herd mentality and thinking what the masses do is good? May not be. Maybe what I do can be better than what the masses do. But that's our constant conditioning. And we Firbi survived it because we didn't have the evolutionary seed. But for the youth or the children of today, it's very difficult to survive that because they come with that evolutionary seed in them. The child is shown an image of what he has to grow into or be hammered into. As a result, at an early age, the student starts investing in building an image of himself in people's minds rather than in fulfilling potentials innate to him. This is a very important line. And this is where we all go wrong, not only children but even us. At a very young age, we are taught to invest into building an image of ourselves in people's mind. How should I act so that I look good in people's mind? Not how should I act so that I feel happy and good in myself. So that is our undoing. This leads to a loss of identity, self-deception, because if I'm all the time trying to look good in people's mind, I'll necessarily deceive myself. I'll pretend to be what I'm not, and consequent pretensions. This is the fundamental cause of depression and low self-worth in our youth. And For that, the media is largely responsible, because the media is also an alternate education which is constantly educating the youth to look a certain way, behave a certain way. This is cool, that is not cool. But have we looked inside to see what I really find cool? Why am I always letting the media tell me that this trend is cool? In Sri Aurobindo's model of integral education, we look at a child not as raw material for a machine, but as a conscious soul in the evolutionary journey. And that's how every parent and adult should look at a child, not as raw material for a machine. I'll bring you up in this way so that you learn these many lakhs a month, so that you marry a man who earns this much money and makes you. That's the future model I'm showing to my child. Why am I doing that? Why don't I allow her to grow along the lines that she wants? Understanding that every child grows along unique lines of development, integral education nourishes the child's unique and deepest aspiration. The education aims at the development of the child's personality to serve the soul, rather than the soul trapped by a socially conditioned, often dysfunctional personality. That's why so many youth have depression, because they have their soul is trapped by a socially conditioned dysfunctional personality. We haven't given a chance to the soul to outflower and bloom as it could. So that's why there are so many eating disorders in our youth. No, it's startling, the numbers that are growing. Practically out of 30 children in South Bombay schools, you will find 3 or 4 who have severe eating disorders like anorexia, and their parents don't even know about it. And when they confide in you as a teacher, sometimes you can't break the confidence and tell the parents. But it is so severe. So just look out for signs of sudden weight loss in your child. And typically when they have these disorders, because they are not getting the proper nutrients, their hair falls, they start getting acne on the skin. Look out for all these, because sometimes they are fighting a crippling eating disorder and the parent is completely oblivious. On open day when I meet them, I'm trying to give hints, but the parent is saying, no, my child eats very healthy and all that. And I'm bound by confidence to the child. Unless it gets very, very severe, then I'll cajole the child to confide in the parent herself, but I can't tell the parent. So the point is that such children are all the time seeing the media, all the time seeing these skinny figures and killing themselves. Bulimia is they are eating food and vomiting it out, and some children say that now they can't stop. It's almost a reflex. They'll eat food and they'll vomit it out. They can't stop it even when they want to. So look out for these things and help the children out. So why is this eating disorder so rampant? Because the whole education and social conditioning is so much about appearances, appear a certain way. We often tell our children, so fat you are, who will marry you? You better lose weight before I start showing you in arranged marriage. All these kind of things are very, very detrimental to children. Why can't we tell them that even plump is beautiful? There are some children who carry plumpness so well and they look so good even with that fat on them. Why are we always hammering into them to look a certain way? So I had one child who had years ago, very severe anorexia, not bulimia. She was not puking out her food, but severe anorexia where she was scared of food. All the time her mind was about, what will I do at the next meal? How will I devise a way to eat less at the next meal? crazy thoughts. Suppose I go and teach in the slums. In the slums anyway there's less food, so I'll have less to eat. And I'm talking about a child who was the topper of her class, that intelligent, but these kind of crazy thoughts start going on in the child's mind. But one saving grace was this child was very, very, very connected to the mother and a very regular at the Saturday sessions here. So we worked with various things, and she learnt up one passage of Savitri, which I'll share with you. And every time that machinery of thoughts of anorexia came, you're no good, you're so, and she was like a skeleton, and she would show me her arm and said, see how fat my arms are, miss. That's the kind of trick. It totally warps the mind, and you can't convince the child. You have to just say okay. She'll never believe you if you tell her you don't have fat on your arm. So the point is, whenever all those thoughts would start in her head, she learnt up this passage from Savitri: across the awful march no eye can see, the awful march of thoughts in your head, barring the dreadful route no will can change. So it's a imagery which shows mother standing and your mind like a machine who's coming charging at you, and mother standing in the way of that machine blocking it. This reminds me, I heard this story. I don't know whether it's true or not. It's hearsay, but it deserves to be true. Apparently during the tsunami, there was a little girl who apparently told her mother, Mama, come see, there's that figure standing over the sea like this. She'd seen a huge figure in white with her hands like this, blocking out the destruction of tsunami. And we do know that when tsunami hit, the ashram strip was untouched. This side of the ashram strip, this side of the ashram strip devastated. But it really looked like across the awful march of nature also, mother was standing across the awful march no eye can see, barring the dreadful route no will can change. She stood facing the engines of the universe. A heart stood in the way of its driving wheels. It's the mother's loving heart which stood rock solid in the way of the driving wheels. Its stark conventions met the flame of her soul. So this child would visualize this whole thinking of anorexia coming towards her like a machine, and mother standing in the way blocking it, and she would repeat these lines again and again and again, and she would find that eventually that whole formation of anorexia would ease. And that's where I say it must be true that mother is the most powerful force in the world, because if you have friends who have anorexia, you know it's the most difficult thing to cure. Doctors, they are with counselors and doctors for years and they keep suffering. And this girl's openness to the mother, she never visited a single counselor, single doctor. She's on her feet now. She says even now sometimes that thought of food comes, but she's able to handle it. She eats well and she's on her feet. So these words from Savitri, I said it, but and I would strongly advise, if you're grappling with a thought formation about relationships or whatever, learn up these lines and do what this girl did. Visualize mother standing in the way of that thought formation and say these lines with feeling again and again. Savitri is so powerful. Barring its dreadful route no will can change, she faced the engines of the universe. A heart stood in the way of the driving wheels. Its giant workings paused in front of a mind. Its stark conventions met the flame of a soul. A magic leverates, till here if you learn it's enough, okay? A magic leverates suddenly is caught that moves the veiled ineffables timeless will. So when the girl did this, she caught the magic leverage of the veiled ineffable's timeless will. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to a transcendent force. So that's what she did. Her strength was linked to a transcendent force. Then miracle is made the common rule. So, I'll end with what to me is the most touching story in my working with children. So, when I offered yoga as an ICSE optional subject at one of the co-ed South Bombay schools, there were no takers because everyone thought the boys thought yoga as a pansy subject, etc. So the principal called me to give a talk. I gave a talk and 2 girls came forward and 1 boy. That 1 boy, let me call him Arun. His name is totally changed. He had severe health issues, so his parents had forced him to come for yoga for his health issues. Now he was also very bullied in class and he used to miss a lot of days at school. His grades were very low. So you know in Tare Zami Par the dyslexic boy is called Darshil. So boys would call him Darshil to make him feel bad and all that. So in any case, Arun came for yoga, he liked it. Next day he brought 2 more boys. He joked, "Miss, I brought you 2 more devotees." And finally we had a group of 7 children. And I took them to Pondicherry, as I always take the children I teach. And throughout the year of teaching, I would see the other boys being very mean to him, and I had multiple conversations with them about being nicer to him, and they'd always promise me, "Yes, yes, miss, we won't," and next day they'd do it again. So we went to Pondicherry and we were at a dinner table together, just 7 people, so I could hear the conversations. And again I saw the boys bullying him, and this poor Arun's cap was going lower and lower. Maybe he was crying, I don't know. So that's a moment I felt really, really angry. I think I always say that you have to feel inadequate before feeling angry. I felt very defeated. I felt that I wasn't reaching these children at all, and maybe that inadequacy became anger. Any case, on the way back, I said I'm getting off at the Samadhi because I wanted to cool off. I said, "Y'all go back to Park Guest House." But these 2 boys who had troubled him, look at their luck, on maybe mother's plan, they said, "Miss, we are coming with you to the Samadhi." So they came with me, and it was one time I was really angry and I used words on them I've never used on children. I really gave it to them, and then we went to the Samadhi, and then we came back. And then I was in my room, and one of the boys was on the lawns of Park, one other boy was in his room, and the other children kept slipping me notes. "Miss, A is crying, B is not talking." So I said, "Let them be." Then they both came to me and they said, "Miss, we were crying not because you shouted at us, but because we are really feeling bad for what we've done. But you know, we actually, Arun's our best friend." Look at their definition of a best friend. But when it comes to the temptation to being cool and sounding funny and putting him down, it's like an itch. We can't stop ourselves. It's like it's bigger than us. But we are promising you we'll change. So I said, "Don't tell me that again. I've heard it 100 times. I don't believe you." So they said, "Okay, miss, we are the leaders of the class. We'll make the whole class change towards him. You watch." Next day, we went to Matri Mandir. It was their first visit there. And this boy, Arun, came out of it wide-eyed. He said And Miss, for 15 minutes my eyes were open and I was looking at that crystal, and I didn't have one single thought for all 15 minutes, not a single thought. And it was the most amazing feeling in the world. And then he said, Miss, I have white walls in my bedroom. Do you think I can get a glass globe and create a Matri Mandir for myself? Of course, that's not possible, but that was his child's mind. So the point is, he'd experienced a real shift in Matri Mandir, and that's what this generation is so open to, the silent mind. What we struggle so much, I find the first instant they get it, their mind just like just now 2 months back when I'd gone to the when I'd taken children, one girl came to me and said, Miss, I'm scared to go to the Samadhi again. I'd taken them the previous day. So I said, why? She said, Miss, I was just sitting there watching my breath and suddenly I had no thought and I had no access to thought. I got scared. I started trying to remember the sutras, but I just couldn't think. And she said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So I said, good thing. If you don't want it, give it to me. I'll give my right arm for that. So anyway, she's next day again. So I'm saying this generation has that equipment. It comes very easy to many of them to experience this complete silencing of the mind. So even Arun experienced it over there, and then we came back to Bombay. We always say that if you shift inside, it will bring a corresponding shift in your outer world. Your outer world is a reflection of your shift inside. So Arun had experienced this shift inside. We came back to Bombay. The boys actually kept their word. They changed the whole class, and this boy Arun started flowering. He started attending school regularly, his grades improved, his marks improved, and he was really blossoming. We could see that. And that just makes us think that when we are mean to each other, how much damage we cause one person, and when we decide to be nice, we actually give them their life, isn't it? That's how much power we have, even socially, not just in classrooms, even with each other. One rude comment, one ignoring someone, how much damage we do to each other, how much power we have, and that same power can bring so much life to people if we use it well. So anyway, he was really blossoming, and so I took them in the Diwali holidays, which might be October, November. January, I get a call saying that this boy Arun was crossing the road at Marine Drive and a car had hit him and he was no more. So I just feel that his soul was waiting to take this experience at Matri Mandir, experience joy in the last 2 months and then go. And then the boys wrote to me that thank God we changed. At least the last 2 months of our best friend's life was so happy. So now since it's an ICSE board subject, they write a yoga paper. So in December, Arun had written a yoga where I'd asked a question, what is faith to you and what in life would help you to have faith? So he'd written the answer. I'm wondering if I still have that paper, I don't know, because I could never give it to him. Before I could give out the papers, he was no more. So he had written that faith is believing in God, whatever. And he said that my mother has already had 1 surgery in her spine and she's due for 1 more. So if somehow God would make her avoid her 2nd surgery, I would have faith. Now, of course, Arun passed on in Jan. I found out in May that his mother had done some acupuncture or whatever and had actually avoided her spinal surgery. So yeah, very, very special these moments with children are. So we'll end with this very prophetic and very beautiful passage from Savitri. Sri Aurobindo's prophecy of these Sunite children, page 343, 344. Sri Aurobindo says, a giant dance of Shiva tore the past. When does Shiva dance the Tandav, the dance of destruction? When one structure has to be destroyed and a new structure has to be born. So a giant dance of Shiva tore the past. There was a thunder as of worlds that fall. Earth was overrun with fire and the roar of death, clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made. There was a clangor of destruction's wings. The Titan's battle cry was in my ears. Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, I'm not a philosopher, not in Savitri, he says, I'm not a philosopher, I'm a seer. I see and I write what I see. So he'd seen all this in his inner vision, that it was Kal Yuga, things were being torn apart, the Titan's battle cry was in my ears. Alarm and rumor shook the armored knight. Night is ignorance and ignorance is defensive, armored. Alarm and rumor shook the armored knight. I saw the omnipotent, omnipotent is all powerful God, omnipotent's flaming pioneers. Pioneers are people who start something new. So these very special souls are the omnipotent's flaming pioneers. I saw the omnipotent's flaming pioneers over the heavenly verge which turns towards life, come crowding down the amber stairs of birth. So he actually sees these very special souls coming down to earth. And I'm repeating, he didn't write this as poetry, categorically said, I'm not a philosopher, I'm a seer. I write what I see. Come crowding down the amber stairs of birth, forerunners of a divine multitude. They are going to be the forerunners, the leaders of the divine crowds. Out of the paths of the morning star they came. Morning star is the first star that comes at dawn. This is a metaphor for a new age. So out of the paths of the morning star they came into the little room of mortal life. I saw them cross the twilight of an age. Twilight is when the cusp between darkness and light. So Sri Aurobindo says we are in this cusp between darkness and light. And in this cusp, I saw them cross the twilight of an age. The sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. Such a beautiful line. Sun-eyed children, like Sanaya says, I have sunshine within me, untouched by the outside. And these children know that. They have that sunshine inside them. They are the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. The great creators with wide brows of calm. They are going to be the creators of a new age. Many of the youth sitting and listening to this, these words are for you. The great creator with wide brows of calm. The massive barrier breakers of the world. They'll break all the barriers of convention and old thought. We've discussed that. They don't conform. They don't conform to the institutions of marriage or society or education or anything. They've come with that evolutionary urge to break it. In fact, Mother has said that in a few years the institution of marriage will be obsolete. People won't get married only. It will become an outdated thing, but that's of course far away. The sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. The great creators with wide brows of calm, the massive barrier breakers of the world, and wrestlers with destiny in her lists of will. They will wrestle with destiny. See, Mother has said that for these very special children, their horoscopes never come true because they are born with a certain destiny, but they have a soul force which overrules that destiny. So wrestlers with destiny in her lists of will, the laborers in the quarries of God. Quarries are like those stone places where you dig out rocks, so it's a metaphor. They are laborers in the workshop of God. The messengers of the incommunicable. What is not communicable, these children will communicate. We saw that, right? Many of the children were articulating what Sri Aurobindo has articulated in Savitri or Synthesis of Yoga in their own way. So, messengers of the incommunicable, the architects of immortality. Into the fallen human sphere they came. Faces that wore the immortal's glory still. Voices that commune still with the thoughts of God. Bodies made beautiful with the Spirit's light. Sometimes you can see the light on their faces. Their faces are like little diyas, carrying the magic word, the mystic fire, carrying the Dionysian cup of joy, approaching the eyes of a diviner man, lips chanting an unknown anthem of the soul. Their lips are chanting an unknown song of the soul. Feet echoing in the corridors of time. High priests of wisdom, sweetness, might and bliss. Think of the youth you know, and you'll find it, maybe your surface mind will find it very difficult that how can these people with all their wild ways be this? But their very wildness, if it's channeled correctly, it becomes an adventure of consciousness, which is what Sri Aurobindo's whole yoga is. High priests of wisdom, sweetness, might and bliss, discoverers of beauty's sunlit ways, and swimmers of love's laughing fiery floods, and dancers within rapture's golden doors. Now, we often say that this generation is very selfish, they don't know how to love. But at the same time, you'll find that they'll stay up the whole night looking after strays. If something really, for example, the book that I wrote, it wasn't my effort. I cannot tell you how much these young people have labored with me late into the night for no compensation except their love for yoga and their love for me. I mean, the way they've worked at it, the way they've come forward with ideas and suggestions, and I really feel it's a collective work. So Hetal has copies of the book Yoga for Young Minds. Maybe you'd like to pick it up. There are lots of anecdotes like this about children woven into the book. And really, it's been illustrated by an ex-student of mine. The designer is an ex-student, and she's poured her heart and soul into it. It's been edited not by a professional editor, but 3-4 of my children, and I can't tell you how many hours they spent editing it. So we can't call these children selfish, but they will work for a cause that grabs their heart. Not because you tell them do it. In fact, when you tell them do it, they won't do it. But if you give them the freedom to do it out of their love, they'll exceed what you and I can do. So high priests of wisdom, sweetness, might and bliss, discoverers of beauty's sunlit ways, and swimmers of love's laughing fiery floods, and dancers within rapture's golden doors, their tread one day shall change the suffering earth and justify the light on nature's face. So beautiful. And justify the light on nature's face. So shall I just read this whole passage without explanation? Just feel it in your heart and bring to mind the youth you know. And even if your mind contradicts it, Sri Aurobindo has said this is about them. A giant dance of Shiva tore the past, There was a thunder as of worlds that fall. Earth was overrun with fire and the roar of death, clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made. There was a clangor of destruction's wings. The Titan's battle cry was in my ears. Alarm and rumor shook the armored night. I saw the omnipotent's flaming pioneers over the heavenly verge which turns towards life, come crowding down the amber stairs of birth, forerunners of a divine multitude. Out of the paths of the morning star they came, into the little room of mortal life. I saw them cross the twilight of an age, the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn, the great creators with wide brows of calm, the massive barrier breakers of the world, and wrestlers with destiny in her lists of will, the laborers in the quarries of the gods, the messengers of the incommunicable, the architects of immortality. Into the fallen human sphere they came, faces that wore the immortal's glory still, voices that commune still with the thoughts of God, bodies made beautiful by the Spirit's light, carrying the magic word, the mystic fire, carrying the Dionysian cup of joy, approaching eyes of a diviner man, lips chanting an unknown anthem of the soul, feet echoing in the corridors of time, high priests of wisdom, sweetness, might and bliss, discoverers of beauty's sunlit ways, and swimmers of love's laughing fiery floods, and dancers within rapture's golden doors. Their tread one day shall change the suffering earth and justify the light on nature's face. So that's to all our sun-eyed ones. Let's not get in their way too much with our old traditions, our old way of thinking. Let's help them to fulfill the purpose they have been born to fulfill without getting in the way. Hands together in a namaste. 3 ohms. Om.